But the crazy part is that the room was filled with other girls and no one else heard it. No one else heard her screams, her begging, her pleading. No one heard any of it. They all slept through it.
Who agreed and lived in that attic for nearly 10 years. Coming out only during the day for trysts with Dolly, and at night sitting alone in the dark reading mysteries by candlelight in the attic. Even worse, Fred, the husband, was convinced that he was going crazy.
However, when they returned, Jared was nowhere to be found. An extensive search turned up signs of Jared, including his footprints, his backpack, but most importantly, his camera. The camera had 12 photos, 11 of them being when he was with his fellow Boy Scouts, but the last photo was when he was by himself.
There are 2 points you must follow. Nobody younger than 10 can play this game, and be very careful with the questions you ask.
You know, there happens to be a certain site that's the #1 most visited site in the whole country. You know that,
What's
right?
that? I'm back, it's your boy FITTIE to the E, and today we're going to be taking a look at these videos today. If you guys like the video, please like the video. Try to get to 500 likes to the video. If you guys like the chain, check the link down in the description. If you show proof that you're subscribed to Fittie and use FIT10, you can get a 10% discount on all chains. And
I have a Ouija board story time. Now, can you imagine if my eyes were actually this color? I would literally rule the world, but God had other plans. But back to the story. The person who submitted this has been tagged down below. This story actually happened to her mom. So for the sake of the story, we're gonna call her mom Gloria. So when Gloria was a teenager back in the 90s, she was having a sleepover with a bunch of her friends. They were celebrating her friend's birthday. Everything was going well until one of the girls decided to bring out a Ouija board. They played the game for some time but forgot to say goodbye at the end of the session. Now, one of the main reasons why they were even playing the game in the first place was because one of the girls' father had recently passed away and she was trying to connect with him. But what she ended up connecting with was not her father at all. Now, while they were playing the game, weird things started to happen. Like one of the girls felt like somebody was tapping her shoulder, but no one was there. They were hearing strange tapping noises throughout the room. The lights were flickering, but they didn't really think much of it. They decided to put the board away and go to bed. Now, there was a girl that was laying next to Gloria. For the sake of the story, we're gonna call her Monica. The next morning after the girls woke up, they found Monica in the corner of the room, hugging her legs, rocking back and forth. The rest of the girls are of course worried, so they go up to her and ask her what's wrong. The girl then tells them, "Did you guys not hear me? I was screaming, asking for help. No one came and helped me." She then moved her arms and her arms were covered in scratches in the sets of 3, like 3 scratches on each section, and her legs also had scratches. As it turns out, after everyone went to sleep, Monica was dragged out of her bed. Whatever this thing was had come in the room and dragged her out by her legs and was trying to take her away from the rest of the girls. Thankfully, she fought back and did not end up going with whatever this thing wanted with her, and I'm getting chills even talking about it. But the crazy part is that the room was filled with other girls and no one else heard it. No one else heard her screams, her begging, her pleading. No one heard any of it. They all slept through it.
I'm not gonna lie, that is a little bit strange. How are you gonna hear someone, I mean, apparently they didn't hear it, but like, how is someone gonna scream, yell, and you're gonna be sleeping and not hear that? I feel like that's a natural human response to hear someone screaming or yelling and instantly be like, what is going on, you know?
If you want to see something freaky, we'll take a look at some old footage. This is from the Theodore Brill's assisted living community, and it's security footage from back in the 80s. This camera would just kind of generally face this hallway, but one night it caught something very eerie in this particular frame. Before we get into it, I have got to say thank you to you for making my podcast, Creep Time the Podcast, number 18 in the whole country. I'm very grateful. So if you have not listened to Creep Time the Podcast, go click the link in my bio. If you look to the background of this footage, on the right there appears to be an elderly woman just standing there. What really kind of freaked everybody out is that everybody recognized this woman. The staff could tell that this was Blanche Raymond. The problem is, Blanche Raymond died 2 years earlier in 1984. Still, the consensus from the staff is that the footage clearly shows who they recognize to be this woman. Just feasibly no explanation for it. How do we explain this footage?
What they find in the attic is nightmare fuel. It was late and Jason woke up, as he often does, craving a late night snack. He got out of bed and walked down the hall towards the kitchen, making sure to be quiet so he didn't wake his parents. As he rounded the corner, he saw it. A deranged looking man drinking milk straight from the carton. He ran to tell his parents, but when they got there, the man was gone. After searching the house, they decided it had been Jason's wild imagination, but Jason knew otherwise. A couple weeks later, it happened again, except this time the man was looking at Jason, watching him sleep from the air conditioning vent in his ceiling. But once again, his parents chalked it up to a young boy's wild imagination. Weeks went by and the foul odor started coming from Jason's room, and it reeked of death. Jason begged his parents to check the attic for the strange man. The smell had to be his doing. And when they did, what they found was disturbing. The deranged man was dead in the crawl space.
Yeah, you know, as young as kids are, if a kid ever tells me like,
yo, I just saw a guy just drinking milk from a carton downstairs in our kitchen,
I'm not gonna sit there and be like, oh yeah, it's just your imagination, kid. I'm gonna literally be like, okay, we gotta put some cameras in this. Bro, his own dad was trying to pretty much put him as like a schizophrenic patient. Like, oh, it's just your wild imagination. Like, bro, come on.
She kept her secret lover hidden in the attic? Dolly Ostrich lived in Wisconsin with her husband Fred, and the marriage was a bit rocky. And one day, Dolly started an affair with a young man who worked at her husband's factory named Otto Sandhuber. At first, they handled the affair in the usual fashion, meeting up at hotels, sneaking around. But this got expensive, so Dolly had another idea. She asked Otto to quit his job and move into her attic. Otto agreed and lived in that attic for nearly 10 years. Coming out only during the day for trysts with Dolly, and at night sitting alone in the dark reading mysteries by candlelight in the attic. Even worse, Fred, the husband, was convinced that he was going crazy because he was hearing footsteps, mysterious sounds, seeing shadows. Obviously, he was hearing Otto, but when he confronted Dolly about this, she said, "You're crazy, go see a doctor." Dolly, the original gaslighter. If you want more on this bizarre story, check out the Avery After Dark podcast, because it gets even crazier from there, if you can believe it.
Early year of 1991, this is the last photo ever taken of Jared Negretti. Jared was a 13-year-old Boy Scout who went hiking with his fellow troops. As they were hiking up this 1,000-foot summit, Jared grew tired and his fellow Boy Scouts told him to wait there and they would be right back for him. However, when they returned, Jared was nowhere to be found. An extensive search turned up signs of Jared, including his footprints, his backpack, but most importantly, his camera. The camera had 12 photos, 11 of them being when he was with his fellow Boy Scouts, but the last photo was when he was by himself. The picture shows an eerie close-up of Jared's face, and this would be the last photo ever taken of him. Police and volunteers have put a collective 45,000 hours into searching for the remains of him, but it's almost like he completely vanished into thin air. It's been 31 years and there's not a single detail that's...
31 years is a lot of years. That boy's gone. I'm pretty sure we saw that in the last video. I was saying that he didn't really look too scared. Like, a lot of people were like, oh, well, his face, he looks frightened. I don't think so. I think he looked pretty stoic. Like, he was like, yeah, I'm ready for whatever is gonna happen right now.
Who or what destroyed Dixie's car? In 2008, Dixie went outside on the patio to check on her cats. The cats were missing. Her husband was outside. He said to come over to the car, and this is what they find. She found pieces ripped out, scratch marks. One of the theories was that it was the lizard man terrorizing the town. Here's some of the pieces that was like ripped out. The sheriff came and took some blood samples, and here's what they found. So according to the University of California, the blood came from a dog. The sheriff and Dixie were still not convinced that this was caused by a dog, maybe a coyote. The official report was that this was caused by a dog, not the lizard man. But what do you guys think?
What could that car have possibly done to that dog that made him destroy it like that? Because I'm looking at it, I'm like, yo, that dog was... Because that's metal, dude. Oh my gosh. You can even see like a little bit of rustling. That's kind of crazy.
Let's talk about controversial horror movie, Possession. I'm going to advise a slight trigger warning because I'm going to show you one of my favorite scenes from this movie. Now, I watched the movie because it went viral on TikTok, and I see why. This movie gets crazy, and you need to watch it to see, okay? But I'll describe what happens. Possession is a 1981 horror film from Polish writer and director Andrzej Żuławski. Now, the film was banned in the UK and released in the US, but with 40 minutes cut from its original screen time.
Aux États-Unis, le film a été acheté d'une manière assez pirate par un imbécile qui l'a collé en double ticket avec un autre film d'horreur, et pour le coller en double ticket, il en a coupé la moitié. Donc ce fut une espèce d'escroquerie horrible et vulgaire, une grande brutalité.
Now, in the movie, we follow married couple Anna and Mark. Now, Anna wants a divorce, and Mark wants to know why, but she won't tell him why, and as he tries to figure out why, things get really crazy. Really, like, deeply disturbingly crazy, okay? I'm talking very graphic and disturbing unaliving scenes, really disgusting imagery, and a tentacle scene, which I'm not gonna describe what happens because, you know, TikTok. It was so much that the UK literally named this as one of the top video nasties. Basically, a film that is too obscene. So yeah, however, like I said, a lot of those scenes were cut. It was 10 years later that the film would acquire cult status because the uncut version of the film was being more widely watched. That's when people were saying like, yeah, this is horrifyingly cool to watch. Yeah. One of the scenes that made me feel that way is this scene right here. I'm gonna show you. Now that scene goes on for another uncomfortable minute. Now if you want to experience this film, the whole uncut version is on Shudder right now. I highly recommend it, however, be prepared for some weird scenes, okay?
She said that the wife wanted a divorce with the husband, but the husband was trying to find out why. One thing I'll say from my experience as a male is if a girl ever wants to break up with you, there's no point even finding out why, you know what I'm saying? Because at the end of the day, they'll tell you anything. They'll run ropes, make you jump through loops, be like, oh yeah, this is the reason, when it's 100%, 9 times out of 10 is not the reason.
1 minute scary stories. Episode 2. My daughter woke me around 11:50 p.m. last night. My wife and I had picked her up from her friend Sally's birthday party, brought her home, and put her to bed. My wife went into the bedroom to read while I fell asleep watching the game. "Daddy," she whispered, tugging my shirt sleeve. "Guess how old I'm going to be next month?" "I don't know, beauty," I said as I slipped on my glasses. "How old?" She smiled and held up her fingers. "It is 7:30 a.m. now." My wife and I have been up with her for almost 8 hours. She still refuses to tell us where she got the fingers.
He's acting weird. I'm getting weird vibes.
Does anyone remember the Miami zombie from 2012? This is Rudy Eugene, and back in 2012, when he was going to Urban Beach Week in Miami, his car broke down. He stayed with his car for about 30 minutes and then started to cross a 3-mile stretch of road called the MacArthur Crossway. As he was walking, he began stripping off his clothing. He got rid of his license. He had a Bible with him that he chucked, all around acting erratic. As he's walking, he runs into a homeless man, Ronald Papo, who was sleeping in the underpass of the causeway. And he proceeded to him unconscious, remove his clothing, and eat his face. This is not an over-exaggeration. He ate this man's face from the beard up. When police arrived on the scene, they gave commands to Eugene to stop eating this dude's face. He didn't listen. He just proceeded to growl and continued to eat this man's face. He was unalived at the scene. Trigger warning. There are pictures of Ronald Papo right after his face got eaten online. And there are pictures of how it's healed since then. He did survive.
Yeah, I don't know what type of substances that guy was on, man. You gotta be on, you can't be sober to do something like that. I promise you.
This is the scary game to play in real life called the card game. The card game is a paranormal ritual that allows you to contact the spirits of the dead. This game can be played with any amount of people. To start the game, turn off the lights in the room you're in and light the candle. Then sprinkle a little bit of salt on the cards. Then each person that is playing the game must shuffle the cards. Now lay out the cards face down in 3 groups of 6 cards. Each group of cards should be in 2 columns and 3 rows, just like this picture. Then say out loud, "Are the spirits willing to talk to us tonight?" Then hover your hands over the cards until you feel heat coming from one of them. Then turn over that card. Spirits will communicate through the cards. Hearts means yes, spades means no, diamonds mean maybe, and clubs mean I don't know. If anything bad starts to happen, end the game immediately. If you hear whispering or feel something touching you, stop playing.
Yeah, I don't know about y'all, but I'm never playing that game. All these demon games, yeah, never playing them. Even the Ouija board, not doing that.
Are there zombies in China? A video that was released has caused a lot of discussion on social media and news outlets. People are asking if this is the start of a zombie apocalypse, with some believing the video to be real. Others suggest it might be nothing more than an elaborate hoax, but regardless of whether or not it's true, one thing is certain. If there was a zombie outbreak happening in China, it would have abruptly been kept under wraps by the Chinese government. So what do you think? Is this the beginning of a zombie downfall, or simply just another internet hoax that we'll laugh about one day?
911, what are you reporting? I got a strange going on. I hear something
that someone or something grabbed his dog and threw it over his 9-foot privacy fence, ultimately killing him. And the next time that he would call 911 would be far, far worse. The area known as Kitsap has been known to have all kinds of weird and odd sightings of something out there ever since people have occupied the land. This being is often what we refer to as Sasquatch. Now, in the phone call, he describes that there's something outside crawling around. He brings up the fact that his dog recently passed away and begs the police to send someone out there. All this is to build up to the moment that he actually realizes what he's looking at. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that I believe or don't believe this phone call. That is up to you to decide. Here's the call.
Roger, picture the window down. I don't see anything. I don't want to go outside. Jesus Christ, you better get up. Hello? Get somebody out there. What's going on now, sir? That son of a is about 6'9", I don't know. You see him now, sir? Yes, I'm looking right at him. Okay, hang on. He's right. You see your yard, sir? Yeah, God, he's big. Okay, what's in your yard? He's looking big.
This is why I don't stay at creepy cabins. In 2018, a man trying to escape city life was staying in a cabin in the mountains. One morning, he stepped outside. He discovered a red ball resting in his front yard. At first, he thought nothing of it, imagining that his neighbor's children must be tossing it over the fence. He kicked the ball back, went inside, and tried to resume his daily routine. But when night fell, he was awoken by the sound of children laughing outside his window. Determined to investigate, he rushed out of his house only to find that there were no children anywhere in sight. Yet the red ball was back on his property. Confused, he brought it inside his house and tried to sleep. The following day, he went over to his neighbor's house to complain about the kids, but he discovered that his neighbor was an old man living alone and there were no children in the area. That night, the man awoke once again to the sound of children playing on his property. He peered out the window, but there were no children to be seen, only the red ball resting on the ground. He ran downstairs to check on the ball he had brought inside, but it had vanished without a trace. Suddenly, he felt a chill run down his spine as he spotted a strange, stiff figure watching him from afar. The next day, the man left the cabin, never knowing who or what was outside. Should have chosen a different apartment. Sally was moving into a new apartment when she notices a crawl space above the ceiling but thinks nothing of it. One night while watching TV, she is frightened by a tiny woman out on her fire escape trying to break in. She hides and calls the cops while the intruder tries to open the locked windows. Moments later, Sally hears something crawling around above her and notices one of the ceiling tiles was missing. Then a deranged woman appeared staring from the hole before scurrying off back into the crawl space. It took the police 3 days to take the deranged woman into custody. She should have burned the house down. It was 1989 and Cindy just moved into her new home in California. She was sitting in her living room reading the paper when she hears a strange noise coming from the attic, as if someone was crawling around and tapping on the ceiling. Scared but wondering what was happening, she pulls down the attic access. That's when she saw it. A figure that appeared to be an older man staring right at her, and then he just disappeared. Sure it was a ghost, she called up a team of paranormal investigators, and what happens next proves something sinister was going on. 2 men arrived, not sure that what they'd been told was true. They walk through the front door and the lights just go out, and it's now pitch black in the home. Seconds later, one of the men lets out a scream and then goes silent. Not having a flashlight, the other investigator uses the camera flash to look around the room, capturing one of the creepiest photos in paranormal history. His partner is tied to a beam on the ceiling. Stalkers caught on camera. While taking a walk, they noticed something strange. 2 masked men is following them. At first, they thought that it was just a couple of friends pranking them, but soon realized they was wrong.
Bro, that was a fast video. He just said they were wrong. The video's over.
Recently, the internet has been abuzz with reports of some very strange sightings in national forests around the world. And I don't mean the animal kind. It began with a 5-year-old Reddit thread posted to the community r/nosleep. In the post, a search and rescue officer for the U.S. Forest Service decided to tell some of his creepiest stories from the job. By far the weirdest tale concerns numerous occasions in which he claims to have come across isolated staircases deep in the woods where no man has ever lived. The staircases have no other structure attached to them and look like they've fallen out of the sky, or like the rest of a house has been ripped away. The SAR officer goes on to explain that at first, he was told the staircases were nothing to worry about, but the next time he asked to check them out, he was told by his superiors never to go near them. People in the replies chimed in with their own creepy staircase experiences.
It's real.
You don't talk about aliens
I don't.
much.
I'm not a big alien person. I got enough things going without worrying about it. But I'll tell you what, you have a lot of smart people that think that, there happens to be a certain site that's the #1 most visited site in the whole country. You know that,
What's
right?
that?
Where they think the aliens come down. And
I haven't been on that.
I'll tell you about it after.
I think he's talking about Area 51. I feel like a lot of people go visit Area 51 in Nevada and be like, oh yeah, the aliens are gonna come. We're gonna see aliens. I don't know. Until we see aliens, man, I don't know what's gonna happen.
A miracle. Lourdes, France has a reputation for miracles. The small town drew international attention when in 1858, a young girl named Bernadette claimed to see a vision of Mother Mary. Since then, Lourdes has been a destination for those seeking healing. And Jean-Pierre Belly was one of those people. Years before, Jean-Pierre had been diagnosed with MS and was confined to a wheelchair. So in 1987, he traveled to Lourdes. There, Jean-Pierre received the sacrament of the sick, and the next day, during Mass in the Rosary Square, Jean-Pierre felt something strange, something completely supernatural. He said, "I had the impression that everything was turning around me. In a fraction of a second, I lost all sense of time and space. God was coming to cure my heart." A powerful feeling of liberation and peace that he had never experienced before. After that, Jean-Pierre began to feel tingling in his legs. And a few days later, he took his first unaided steps. These were the first steps he had taken in years. Subsequent examinations would show the seemingly impossible happened. There were now only mere minor traces of the illness that had once dominated his life, and Jean-Pierre regained the complete use of his physical faculties. Though still a medical mystery, Jean-Pierre's cure was deemed an official miracle by the Vatican in 2002. But those with faith know it isn't a mystery at all. It's God. God is so good. What are your thoughts on this amazing story?
I'm not gonna lie, that was an amazing story. That was a very, very good story. It's crazy how someone can go from being disabled just to being abled. Like, what?
These are a list of facts having to do with spirits. Number 1, did you know that spirits absolutely love the smell of lemon? So if you wanted to have a night in with a spirit, make sure you have some lemon flowing, light up a candle or whatnot. I mean, to each their own, but apparently they go crazy for it. Number 2, shadow people. The reason why shadow people take the form of a dark shadow is because it takes less energy for them to take that form. You're also more likely to see them at night because at night there is less electronic disturbances. Spirits absolutely do not like cell phones or any type of electronic devices because it drains their energy. Number 3, pets and children are extremely susceptible to being able to see spirits. For the most part, a child will outgrow it, but your pets won't. And fun little fact, cats actually ward off evil. I think we're at number 4, spirits never sleep. There's no rest for the dead. That is a true saying. They can also read your mind and tell the future. A lot of times they will try to communicate with you through your dreams. Number 5, a spirit cannot harm you or unalive you in any way. They can cause a lot of disturbances in your life or make your life difficult, but they cannot physically hurt you. D words can though. And number 6, I actually have way more facts having to do with just spirits. So if you guys want me to do a part 2, just let me know. Did you know that churches are actually way more haunted than any cemetery?
Okay, churches being haunted more than cemeteries is a little bit sus. I wonder why. Mostly when church is supposed to be like a holy place where there's a lot of blessings and stuff. Why would it be haunted? If anything, shouldn't it be blessed with amazing spirits? Nah, I don't know. I was just thinking about that. I just had to laugh about it. I was like, yo, stop the cap. Stop the cap.
This is proof that we aren't alone. This video I'm about to show you might be the best UFO video ever captured. And if you don't believe in aliens, this video will definitely make you believe in them.
Alright, I don't know what they got going on in China, but that was very weird, I'm not gonna lie. Like, that's gotta be an alien, if I'm being honest. Like, I'm looking at it like, there's no way that's just an airplane.
My sister and I were young. We lived in a charming old farmhouse. We loved exploring every corner, climbing the apple tree out back, but our favorite part was the ghost. We used to call her Mother, mainly because of her sweet, nurturing ways. Every morning, my sister and I would wake up to a glass cup next to our nightstand. We saw this as a sign of love, knowing that Mother was just worried about us and didn't want us to go thirsty during the night. There was an old antique wooden chair that had been left behind that we just kept pushed towards the wall. Anytime my sister and I would be watching TV, we would notice that the chair would slowly move towards us, like inch by inch. A lot of times the chair would end up right in the center of the room. We always felt bad having to push the chair back towards the wall because we saw this as Mother's way of wanting to spend time with us. Years later, long after we had moved out, I found an old newspaper clipping talking about the farmhouse's original owners. As it turns out, Mother was a widow that had unalived both of her kids. She unalived both of her children by giving them each a cup of poisoned milk. And as for the antique chair that would just randomly move by itself and somehow always end up in the center of the room, she had used this chair to climb on top and from the ceiling. I actually found photos of the original unaliving, and I saw her from the ceiling with this chair knocked over, sitting right in the center of the room where she would always move it to.
Have you ever wondered how offenders choose their victims? I started thinking about this because I've been watching the Jared Fogle documentary, and in it he specifically explains how he targeted kids that came from turbulent homes, or kids that he knew he could gain their parents' trust. So I started looking into it, and I read about how Ted Bundy also had a very specific and surprising way that he would choose his victims. Sure, he wanted college-age brunettes, but he would also pick out victims based on the way that they walked. He said that he could tell a victim by the way she walked down the street, the tilt of her head, and the manner in which she carried herself. And it turns out that that is a thing. There is a way people can walk that makes them look like easy targets. And this is specifically for stranger attacks. So this is when a stranger picks you out of a crowd and is like, that is my target. This also applies to everyone. It's not just female victims. But the study says that when shown videos of different people walking, criminals would pick out the people who had uneven walking patterns. These tend to be people who look less coordinated while they're walking. But when people improved their coordination while walking, basically looking more confident while walking, they were looked at as less of a target. So head up, just look like you're going to a meeting wherever you go.
Bizarre mysteries and crimes that were solved by using Google Earth. In 2006, a small plane carrying 2 passengers went missing over the skies of Arizona. But the 2 passengers didn't follow a flight plan, so no one knew what their route was, which made finding the crash site very difficult. But 3 years later, some cyber sleuths used Google Earth to find out the direction the plane was headed and eventually found the location of the lost plane crash. When David and his family weren't home, thieves stole their new camping trailer which was sitting in their driveway. There were no suspects in the case until a year later when David's 11-year-old son looked up their house on Google Earth. It had captured the criminal on their driveway moments before the crime took place. The police would use this photo to find and arrest the suspect.
One of the most baffling unsolved cases ever, this is the mystery of room 2805. Police find that the woman found in that hotel room, Jennifer Fairgate, doesn't exist. They got no hits on her fingerprints found in the room either. So investigators traveled back to the Belgian address that she gave at check-in. They felt that this had to be a lead, as the address and phone number given led to a specific town. But when they got there and asked around, they found that nobody in the town had ever even seen this woman. So what was the connection there? And it gets even stranger. Newspapers publicized this case repeatedly. Sketch photos of the mystery woman have circulated for decades in several countries. But no one has ever identified her. And this all transpired in 1995. No leads. Everywhere they turned was a dead end. But there was one question that a front desk associate had that could break the entire case wide open. According to her, she said the mystery woman wasn't alone at check-in that evening. She was with a man, one Louis Fairgate. She even named him on their registration paperwork. The plot thickens. So who is Louis Fairgate? But the bizarre thing is, no one ever saw this man again, and there was no trace of him in the hotel room. Only room service was ordered for one person, only her prints found at the scene. and police looked into Louis Fairgate to find that he doesn't exist either. So who was this man and where did he go? And he has never been identified either in decades. Did Louis Fairgate slip out the door that day with all her belongings? And what happened in that hotel room? Investigators say that whoever this woman was did a really great job at concealing her identity and say that this investigation has been like trying to track a ghost. I say that someone made her untraceable. And the question remains, who were these people? Were they on the run or undercover? This case is mind-bending. What are your thoughts?
I'm like recapping on all of this drama going on TikTok with Benefit Cosmetics and this girl, Slay by Jess. Let me recap real quick. So it's this brand, it's a makeup brand called Benefit Cosmetics. Allegedly, this involves this influencer, Slay by Jess, and all of it has to do with this girl. So basically, this girl got sent a video, I think from her sister or her friend, and they were like, you have to look at this video from Benefit Cosmetics. It was this video allegedly on the official Benefit Cosmetics page featuring this girl, this is Slay by Jess, pointing to this old picture of the other girl, and she's like, look at this girl's eyebrows, they're so far apart, I can help you with this with makeup. It's a pretty shady thing, and it's definitely wrong to use an old picture of this girl, but that's not the weird part about this. This picture is a private photo of hers. It has never been on the internet, apparently. It's from like 2019, and it's like from a private gallery on her phone. How did Benefit Cosmetics and this girl get this picture, and why are they using it?
Yeah, that is strange. That's like me putting a picture that I sent to like the homies and somehow some random on the internet has it.
I think we may have actually captured a photo of La Llorona. But quick little backstory before I show you guys the photo. This story was submitted by Vivian. I went ahead and tagged her. One night, Vivian's husband and her cousin were up late playing with the Xbox. Vivian's husband was at home with her and her cousin was at his house. They were both just sitting there talking through the mic when they both decided to go outside and smoke a cigarette. At which point, Vivian's husband decided to call her cousin through FaceTime. So as they're out there smoking a cigarette, just talking back and forth, Vivian's cousin notices that his cat is acting weird. His whole body's like hunched over. I'll show you guys a picture, and the hairs in the back of his neck are like standing up. He figures that probably a dog got into his yard, so he decided to walk down towards the driveway to see if he could see anything. But of course, he couldn't see anything. At which point, he heard a woman scream. His first instinct was to drop to the ground right on his stomach and start crawling towards his house. I mean, he was terrified. Crazy part about the whole thing was that Vivian's husband, who was on FaceTime with him, did not hear the scream. Once her cousin got back to the porch, he told her husband what happened and decided to flip the camera in the direction that the scream came from. Her husband, of course, could not see anything, but decided to take a screenshot of the scream. This is when they finally saw what her cousin had heard. Now I'm going to show you guys the first initial photo she sent me, and then I'll show you guys the lightened version. Now this is the first one she sent me. You can see there the silhouette of something standing there. Now this is the more lightened version where you can really start to make out something just there. Now here's when I started to get really creeped out. I mean, this is a legit woman standing there with a veil on her head, screaming in the middle of the night. And here's another close-up. I mean, you can clearly make out a face beneath the veil. What do you guys think?
At first, I'm looking at it like, okay, it's nothing. And then she just did whatever she did, the exposure, brightness, whatever. I'm just like, yo, what is that?
I'm scrolling because this is one of Earth's scariest places, part 60. This one's super spooky. This is Hotel del Salto, located in the Tequendama Falls, right outside of Bogota, Colombia. It is one of the most haunted places in South America. This once stunning luxury hotel is now completely abandoned. Here's a little backstory. In 1923, this luxury hotel was built on a stunning waterfall with beautiful views and was meant for rich travelers. But over time, the nearby waterfall and lake became contaminated and ugly. This led to the decline of the popularity of the hotel, and eventually in 1990, it closed its doors. And the inside is completely abandoned. Everything in there is the exact way it was when it closed its doors. On top of that, there are multiple reports of suicide within its walls. According to local legend, a newlywed couple was staying there in the early 20th century, and the wife jumped off the balcony and into the waterfall. Ghost has roamed the halls for decades, and now that it's completely abandoned, it's even creepier. It's closed off to the public now, but people who have snuck in have reported seeing a ghost in a wedding dress. That's why you should.
Let's talk about this dead woman that solved her own murder. Her name was Terra Spirit. In 1977, she was murdered and her jewelry was stolen. There were no suspects and the case was about to go cold. That was until Teresita's co-worker, Remy Chua, started getting visions of her. Remy said that Teresita was coming to her in these visions, and so she decided to contact her. Remy contacted her from the dead and in the end told the whole story of how she was murdered. She said it was done by a man named Alan Showery. Police went to go investigate and he confessed. So Teresita's spirit solved her case.
Yeah, nah, that'll be me, honestly. If I get hurt or something happened to me, I'm coming back from the grave like, yo, nah, he did it, man. It was him. Best believe I'm not going down like that.
This bathroom is straight out of a nightmare. This is by far the scariest bathroom in the world, and the real question is, would you use it? Okay, so this bathroom is located in a bar in Japan. And inside this haunting bathroom is a huge head looking at you while you're sitting on the toilet going to the bathroom. The face is then activated by the pressure of the seat, which it would then start singing a drunken song in the creepiest voice you've ever heard as it moves slowly closer to you, making the room smaller and smaller until its lips kisses your knees. I don't know why this is so unsettling and disturbing, but it is. There's just something about sitting on the bathroom and staring directly into this giant face as it's singing and moving closer to you, trying to kiss your knees. So only one question remains. Will you go to the bathroom in this bathroom? My answer is 100% no, because I probably won't even be able to go. And if I had to use the bathroom, I would just shut the lights off so I didn't have to look at it. Why is this a thing, and who came up with this to put this in a bathroom?
Yeah, I don't know what type of substances that person was taking that came up with that idea. It's like, just imagine you're out with your friends one night, you know what I'm saying, you had too much to drink, your stomach is starting to bubble, you're like, oh my god, I need to go to the bathroom, like I have no other choice. You go to the bathroom and you just hear this man starts singing songs and kiss your knee. Get out of here, bro. I'm not doing that.
Failed Doomsday Theories, Part 17, The Great Disappointment, which is also what my parents call me. Just kidding, but let's get into the video. And this man right here is William Miller. William Miller is a Baptist preacher who predicted that the rapture, the end of the world, the end of humanity as we knew it, would come between March 1843 and March 1844. He based his theories on extensive but misinterpreted studies of the Bible. He published so much about this theory that the media caught on, which caused his following to grow. His followers ended up calling themselves Millerites. But the year came and nothing happened. William Miller was wrong, and when they called him out, he pushed the day back again and again. Eventually, his followers caught on that he was lying. They were extremely disappointed and ended up shunning him from the religious community. You are not gonna believe this.
We're hearing about the McDonald's Massacre? This took place back in July of 1984 in San Diego, California. Quick little rundown, this person, I won't even say his name because who cares, walked into a McDonald's and in a span of 77 minutes unalived 21 people. Most of them being children, the youngest being 4 months old. According to reports, before he left his home, he told his wife that he was going to go out and hunt humans. Now to get to my story time. This story was submitted by Zaina. I went ahead and tagged her down below. So when Zaina was younger, her and her family moved into an apartment located in San Diego, California. She later found out that it was actually the apartment that this person used to live in. She says that you could actually see the McDonald's right from her bedroom window because it was right down the road. So not long after moving into that apartment, Zaina says that her little brother would wake up in the middle of the night screaming at the top of his lungs without having any memory of it the next day. They would also see a tall, dark shadow figure standing at the doorway just staring at them while they slept. But that wasn't even the worst part. They actually had a doll that had become possessed by whatever was in this apartment. She said that she had a doll that looked like your average doll with the plastic mouth shut. One night she woke up to that doll standing there just smiling at her. At one point the doll even stuck his thumb in its mouth. Somehow Zaina gathered up the courage and ran to her mom's room screaming for help. The very next day, she gathered all of her dolls, gathered them in trash bags, and put them away. After she did this, her little brother told her that he was relieved because he had seen the doll smiling as well. The only difference was that the doll had teeth when it smiled at him. They also had several other unexplained events happening at that apartment. Everything stopped once they eventually moved out. But Zaina believes that the dark entity that was in this home was the gunman. My belief is that this dark entity is the reason why this person committed such a heinous act.
Or he could have just been mentally ill. Oh wow.
So, who turned the light on? A man wrote, I used to work doing maintenance at historic properties, and there was one historic home I worked at when it wasn't open to the public. It was a part of a landmark site, so there was a visitor center with offices, and sometimes I worked with a crew, but there were a lot of times I just worked alone. One day I was working by myself to replace some electrical work on the exterior of the house. I went inside, turned off the circuit to the entire property, and tested it. It was off. I locked the doors, went outside to work. After about an hour, I got down from my ladder and started walking around the house when one of the lights inside the home turned on. I started to freak out, but thought maybe someone was playing a joke on me, so I called the visitor center and they confirmed that there was no one else at the house besides me and that all the keys to the house were present and accounted for. But I was freaked out and ran to get a coworker and made him come back with me to check out what was going on. But when we got to the house, the light was off again, but the bulb was still warm. All of the doors were locked and the circuit was still off. It still gives me shivers to this day. You're not kidding, we have shivers too. Ever experienced anything electronically supernatural like that?
Is it. And if I get another false allegation and you do nothing, I'm shocked. I'm appalled at you. I sit here day after day with this false allegation just machine. I gave the state everything. There's been no disconstruction. There's been no purposeful, I don't care. I don't care. I give over everything. I've done this for 33 years. Never in my life have I seen a trial. I've done 300 appeals in the state of Georgia alone. I've never read a case like this. Judge, I gave them everything I had. I waited, I was at my office till 8, after 8 last night. I waited for their investigator to come by. I handed him an exact copy of thumb drive. They have everything that we got from the Fayette County Jail. There's been no deconstruction. There's been no purposeful exclusion. This is not the first time. Okay. And I apologize that I'm getting tempered, but I've never been treated like this. You talk about professionalism every week. Professionalism is lacking with one lawyer here. It has never been. I don't even like coming to court. I used to love this. I would die for what we do. I used to say, I'm dying. I would die. I couldn't choose a better profession. If I had litigated with Miss Love, I would.
Your Honor, could we strike the
No,
hominem
I'm
attack?
speaking.
Really, could we strike that?
Hey, everybody, calm down. Everybody, both of you, please be seated.
Judge, I'm not
Both
done.
of you, please be seated.
You have to do something. You have threatened me with contempt. You have threatened me with jail. If you go back in time, we can just start in voir dire. Jury after jury, you did individual voir dire painfully. Miss Love would come in and say that juror was crying. It was not true. You would say, that's not my recollection after I said it. You did nothing. We start the case.
But Mr. Steele.
I asked you, please.
Mr. Steele.
Please, Judge. How would you feel if you were being treated
Mr.
like
Steele.
this?
Mr.
Well,
Steele.
I'd like to finish.
Mr. Steele.
Yeah, it's getting really heated over there in that YSL case. I mean, I don't know. There's a lot of people thinking that Young Thug is gonna get found guilty, but they might appeal it and he might get let out. But I don't know, man. It's a little bit tricky, but we'll see what happens. I just found it funny that the lawyer has a lot of things to say about this case. Like, I don't know. The case has been really messy. I'm not gonna lie. If you guys like Young Thug or ever listen to any of his music, put it down in the comments. But anyways, thank you guys for watching. If you guys like this video, remember, let's just get to 500 likes. If you're not subscribed, subscribe.
It's raining worms in China right now. Okay, recently there's been a lot of weird things going on in China. Like them finding a new island covered in dinosaurs. And now apparently it's raining worms.
All went well until one terrible night in the 1950s when the school principal snapped and killed 4 of the young girls in his care.
10 years after the disappearance of flight MH370, the search for the Malaysia Airlines plane could resume. Here's the latest on the investigation.
Heard of You're Next on the Menu? The story goes like, there was a young woman who started a bed and breakfast. She put a listing on the internet looking for a private chef to hire for the bed and breakfast to make the guests breakfast before they leave. A private chef reached out to her and they set up a time for the chef to come over to the bed and breakfast and make a trial breakfast to see if they would like to hire the chef to make breakfast for the guests. When the chef got there, she was acting a little strange, but they didn't really think anything of it. She wasn't talking much, and when she did talk, she made very strange comments. The bed and breakfast owners gave the chef some privacy to make the breakfast in the kitchen, and when the chef was done, she served them up a plate of food. She served them up a plate of pancakes, but only they weren't real pancakes. The chef had served the young woman a plate of a skinned human face. This is actually the plot of my new YouTube video, so if you want to watch it, just click the link in my bio or type in my YouTube username and subscribe.
Yo, what's up? Here's some scary facts about our world that you probably didn't want to know. Part 44. There is a type of shark species known as the Greenland shark that can live upwards of 200 years. One, because it is adapted to the cold water in the Arctic Ocean, and the second reason is because it'll eat anything that falls in the water. That means polar bears, penguins, and anything up above. If you were to travel to space in a spaceship, traveling the speed of light, let's say at age 15, when you came back 5 years later, you would be 20, but all of your friends, well, they'd be 65. There is a condition known as the Cotard syndrome, otherwise known as the walking corpse syndrome, in which people suffer from believing that they have never existed and that they have been dead this whole time. If you go to a Catholic priest and tell him that you murdered somebody, they can't say a word because of Catholic law, and they will keep your secret. Please don't get any ideas.
It's a scary story about the lemonade. One day, a boy named Craig was walking down the street when he suddenly saw a lemonade stand. He was thirsty and he loved lemonade, so he walked over and asked the man who was working for a cup. The man was very old and was dressed in old-fashioned clothes. This confused Craig, but he ignored it after he took a sip of the lemonade. It was the best lemonade he ever tasted. Craig then said, "Whoa, I have to go get my friend." Craig then ran to his friend's house and told him about the lemonade. His friend then ran back to the lemonade stand with him. But when they got to the spot it was at, it was gone. Craig was extremely confused. Craig's friend then asked him who was working the stand. Craig then said a creepy old man who was wearing old-fashioned clothes. Craig's friend then said, "I thought it was fake until now, but there's a ghost of an old man in the area who sells lemonade, and whoever drinks it has 2 days to live."
I don't know if it's just me, but that's a little creepy. Like, how are you gonna just sell lemonade to people and be like, whoever drinks it, it's over for you. You're done.
Why is this little girl in the middle of the woods alone? Okay, so one night a hunter was looking through his trail cam footage when he suddenly came across this. It shows a young girl in a nightgown in the middle of the woods at night alone, right next to 2 deer. The man says he's never seen this little girl before and has no idea who she is. Most people think this is a ghost or a little girl who escaped a kidnapper. Either way, something is extremely creepy about this photo, because why is a little girl in the middle of the woods at night? This picture is a complete mystery to this day, and I wonder what she was actually doing there.
It's a little bit strange how the deer were all just chill. Like, they're all just there, just like, all right, I'm good. Like, they didn't try to run away from her or anything. I don't think it was a ghost, though. It might have been someone's kid. Rip.
This is my go-to like campfire story. I don't think I ever told this one.
Hit me.
So once upon a time, there was this old lady that lives in her house with a dog. Just her dog alone.
Okay.
And whenever she goes to bed, she would always drop her hand nearby her bed and wait for a dog to lick her hand. So that's how she knows like the dog's right beside it. So one day comes, she eats dinner, she does her nightly routine, and she goes to bed. She goes to her bed, lies down, puts her arm down, waiting for the lick from her dog, right?
Okay.
She gets the lick on her hand.
Yeah.
And she goes to sleep. Now she's awakened by a sound of a drip.
A drip.
Drip, drip. And she wakes up. She's like, okay, let me check the washroom. She goes to the washroom and she sees, oh shit, it's the sink. Like, it's dripping.
Yeah.
So she tightens the knobs. It stops dripping. She goes back to her bed. Goes to sleep again, drops her hand down, waits for the lick. She gets a lick from her dog, goes to sleep. Now she's awakened the second time and she's like, what is that? So she goes up, she takes the washroom. Now it's the shower. The shower is dripping, right? Like, okay, turn the knobs, tighten it, whatever. Go back to bed.
Yeah.
Put her hand down, get the lick. Goes to sleep, right?
Right.
Now she wakes up again and she hears the dripping, but it's coming from the basement this time. So she goes down to her basement.
Yeah.
She walks down and she hears the drip getting closer and closer, right?
Okay.
And she sees her dog hung by a rope.
Okay.
Dripping blood from its head.
Whoa.
Onto the floor.
What the hell?
And then on the wall,
yeah,
it says, humans can lick too.
No! Oh! Wait! So a human was licking her the entire time?
A human was licking her hand.
That's the scary story about the man at the window. One night, a man was laying in his bed and it was raining outside. There was lightning and thunder and the man could not sleep. His house was in the middle of nowhere, and he had no curtains on his bedroom windows, so he had a good view of the fields behind his house. It was pitch black outside, and every time lightning striked, it lit up the whole landscape for a split second. All of a sudden, during one flash, the man saw a figure standing in his field. It was a man covered in all black. He was just standing there staring at the house. With every flash of lightning, the man got closer and closer to the house, until he was right outside the man's window. The man's room was pitch dark, and he was completely terrified. When the next flash of lightning came, the guy was not at his window anymore, but instead standing right over him on his bed. The man then jumped out of his bed and ran out of his room. He then got his cell phone and called the police. When the police arrived, they did not find any trace of the man that was in his house. Ever since that night, the man prayed before bed every single night, hoping that man never returned.
Now, if another man has to make you pray to not come back to your house, that's insane. I feel like he'll be good though. I don't think he's gonna come back. At least that's what I think.
The urban legend of
the Devil's Gate.
Libertyville in northern Illinois is famous for a scary urban legend about a creepy-looking gate on a deserted country road and the horrifying events that occurred there.
If you drive about a mile north of Libertyville, down the desolate and secluded River Road, you'll come to a place where the road makes a sharp right turn.
If you look very closely, set back from the road, you will find a menacing-looking iron gate.
According to local legend, in the 1920s, the Libertyville Gate was the entrance to an exclusive girls' finishing school.
It was a quiet and polished place where young girls from Chicago's well-to-do families were able to receive a proper education.
All went well until one terrible night in the 1950s when the school principal snapped and killed 4 of the young girls in his care.
As the legend goes, the mild-mannered principal inexplicably lost his mind one night and in a fit of madness, the girls.
Then, for unknown reasons, he chopped off their heads, carried them down to the gate, and placed them on top of the spikes.
Their bodies were never found, and the principal was arrested and tried for his crime. The authorities tried to hush up the whole incident, but parents refused to send their children to the school, and it had to close down.
As time went on, the horrible murders were forgotten. The girls' school was demolished, and by the 1950s, the property was being used as a sleepaway camp for boys.
All was well until one horrible night in 1963 when a camp counselor discovered that 4 young boys were missing from their tent.
In the dark, the counselors searched the grounds for the missing children, but they could find no trace of them.
As it grew lighter, they approached the gate and discovered the remains of the missing boys.
Their severed heads had been stuck on the spikes of the iron gate. Their bodies were never found and their killer was never identified.
The police suspected that one of the camp counselors had committed the crime, but there was never enough evidence to prove it.
After the scandal, the camp was forced to close down and the property has lain vacant ever since.
It is said that the gate is haunted by the children who died there. People passing by the gate at night claim to have heard the sounds of children crying and screaming.
Others claim to have seen blood running down the wrought iron supports of the gate.
They say that if you go to the gate at midnight on the anniversary of the murders, you will see the phantom heads of the girls and boys appear on the rusted spikes.
Their eyes will be staring straight at you, and their mouths will be moving, stretching wide open as if they are silently screaming.
I'm not trying to scare you guys, but you need to hear about this. In 2013, the CIA declassified a 1966 document called the Adam and Eve Story. The document was written by somebody named Chan Thomas. The document is just over 50 pages and it discusses cataclysms that happened throughout our ancient past. The document claims that civilization and humanity had been reset multiple times due to the Earth's poles flipping, with the disturbing message that it will happen again. Chan Thomas said this cataclysm will cause massive earthquakes and tsunamis, with apocalyptic flooding. Weirdly, 30 years after the document was released, a full-length book was released and it's much longer. But the Adam and Eve story raises a lot of questions, like why is the CIA talking about this document? And why would the CIA classify this document from 1966 to 2013? Do they know something that we don't know?
I feel like the CIA knows like 99.9% of information that we all don't know. There's like a lot of info out there, and I truly feel like the CIA knows way more than we naturally already know.
This is why you should never go to McDonald's late at night. One night, a teen and his friends were out driving around. It was around midnight when they started to get hungry. They were looking for places that were still open and saw McDonald's nearby. It was open, so that's where they decided to go. When they got there, they ordered their food and sat down. That's when they heard banging on the window next to them. They looked out the window to see a bloody man screaming and banging on the window, saying he was gonna come and kill them. They quickly ran to block the door so he couldn't get in, and they called the cops. When the cops made it, the man already ran off and no leads were found on who the man was or where he went.
5 of the scariest sentences.
There was a picture on my phone of me sleeping. I live alone.
You hear your mom calling you into the kitchen. As you're going down there, you hear a whisper from the closet saying, "Don't go down there, honey. I heard it as well."
I woke up to hear knocking on glass. At first I thought it was the window, until I heard it again coming from the mirror.
I can't move, breathe, speak, or hear. If I knew it was going to be this lonely, I would have been cremated instead.
My sister says that my mummy killed her. My mummy said I don't have a sister.
This is why you should always trust your gut. In the early 1970s, a college student decided to hitchhike his way home after class. A car pulls up, a man offers him a ride, and he climbs in. As soon as the car started moving, the student felt totally uneasy, like something was wrong but he couldn't quite place it. Without saying anything, he waited till the next time they slowed down and he flung the door open and ran away. 2 years later, he's flicking through TV channels when he comes across this special interview with a death row inmate. And it's just the audio recording, so he hears the interviewer ask the inmate, "Why did you remove all the door handles inside of your car?" The man just goes, "Well, the first time I tried to kill someone, I picked up a college hitchhiker who got smart at some point and jumped out of my car. So, lesson learned, remove all the door handles." When they showed his picture, the student knew immediately that he was supposed to be the first victim of John Wayne Gacy, aka the Killer Clown, who had killed over 30 men and boys in his clown room and stuffed them into his basement.
I might be getting the times wrong, like maybe it was later, but don't cars like kind of automatically lock when you... I mean, I don't know what year John Gacy was really running around killing people, so I'm pretty sure car doors just lock. Right? Just automatically? Am I tripping?
There have been so many cases of time travelers, bro. Did you see the one about the guy at the Mike Tyson fight?
With the iPhone, right?
Bro, he I don't know if it's an iPhone, but he has a smartphone.
Yeah.
How do you have a smartphone in 1998?
Yeah.
Look, I'm gonna be honest, right? We cover a lot of conspiracy theories on this goddamn podcast. A lot of them, I'm like, I don't know if I believe it. It's just interesting to talk about. But like, the more I do research into it, I'm like... there's too many instances.
A recent news story of a demon in a child's bedroom. What do you think?
Tori McKenzie is begging for help online after capturing what she describes as a demon standing over her grandchild's bed. Miss McKenzie set up a motion-activated camera at her son's house after complaints his 2-year-old daughter Amber was talking to something unseen in the middle of the night. The grandma checked her camera's app days later to find a bone-chilling image of a figure standing very close to her sleeping grandchildren with what she described as it having a horn on its head and long claws. The creature is captured standing awkwardly, looking upwards just before 3 a.m. Miss McKenzie says when she tried to rid the house of the evil presence by burning oils, she claimed cabinets and curtains opened and closed and music began to play by itself. The grandmother insists the discovery has left her fearing for her grandchildren's lives and that the photo is real and could not be photoshopped because she does not have the technical know-how to change the image.
To me, someone could have just broken into their house and was like, all right, well, I'm going to stand over this baby. So that's what I think.
Won't believe what this couple caught on their home surveillance. Amy and Joey Radkeefe had set up CCTV footage in their home to watch their pets while they were away. And they ended up catching a creepy figure of a woman dressed in a nightgown. Watch this video. Did y'all see that? 'Cause I did. And then the cats get spooked and run away. Well, apparently, this woman in the nightgown was a woman that passed away in their building. Other residents who have also lived here have also seen this creepy woman. Bro, if that was me, I'd move out so fast. Make sure you check me out on YouTube, a link in bio for more scary, random, funny stuff.
This is one of the most mysterious things that has ever happened in the abandoned town of Stonebrook. So Stonebrook was this town that was historically really dependent on mining, but once that industry kind of got up and left, almost 100% of the town's population followed. But there were still security cameras that were left over. CCTV cameras that were left over from the late 90s started to capture and transmit what appeared to be a single person who was living in that town. And what's really eerie about this footage is that they're mostly seen alone, but they're just kind of standing there. They're not really doing anything or looking anywhere. Eventually those cameras started to transmit to people, and the footage just got eerier because I don't even know how to explain the context of a photo like this. Still, all of this footage is very far away, right? We never really got a close-up shot of that original person until we got this in 2001. This added to the haunting collection of footage of the unknown person in that town. To this day, the lone resident of Stonebrook kind of remains this haunting relic of a forgotten city.
The home is so haunted, it was legally declared so by the New York Supreme Court. Most commonly known as the Ghostbusters ruling, the case centers around one Lavetta Place in Nyack, New York. The Ackley family lived in the home for decades and during their time had many paranormal encounters. Hearing footsteps and voices, the family awoke every morning to their beds shaking, and were even visited by the spirits in the home who donned clothing from centuries past. Locals knew it as the ghost house, but when Helen Ackley was older and widowed, she put the home up for sale in the 90s. Helen told the couple who wanted to buy it that the home was haunted, but they were okay with it and put a down payment on the home. Until a week or so later, they tried to back out of the deal, and to recover their deposit, they sued Helen Ackley. And the spooky case ended up in the New York Supreme Court. The couple argued they weren't made aware of how haunted the home was, and a judge ruled in their favor and deemed the Ackley home the first legally haunted home in America. If you want the full story, check out the Avery After Dark podcast episode on this case. It is wild. And what are your thoughts? Do you think you should have to tell a buyer if your home is haunted?
I mean, morally, I feel like you should be like, yo, I'm not gonna lie, there be some spooky stuff going on around here at night, so I just want you to be aware. But like, financially, you're kind of just like, man, it's a house, you gonna buy the house or not? Like, you know, do you tell a buyer if a house is haunted? Put your thoughts down in the comments.
What these guys caught on camera will freak you out. Watch the video and I'll explain after. So that slithery thing that looks like a snake wearing a wig is called a krasu. It's a famous ghost in Southeast Asia folklore. The ghost appears as a female with long black hair, with her organs on the outside. In a legend from Thailand, a beautiful princess was executed for loving someone of a lower status. She was going to be burned alive, but before, she told a witch to cast a spell on her to save her. However, the spell was put on her too late, so it only saved this part of her. That's why her organs are on the outside. So what do you think? Did these guys capture the spirit? Because what is that? For more freaky stuff, follow me on YouTube.
Practically, the whole new classroom just exploded. Strange notes would be left on the front door of the schoolhouse. School officials reported the schoolhouse haunted. This story takes place at the Wild Plum Schoolhouse, located near Plum Creek, 1944, North Dakota. Lawrence Daily Journal published a story titled Jitterbug Cole Closes a School. Teacher and children report mysterious events. Hoping for answers, the fire marshal Charles, he sent the Cole to the FBI. The public had questions. People were terrorized. When you live in a small town, people talk and they want answers.
These are videos humans were never meant to see, part 22. Okay, so we all know how terrifying black holes are. But I guarantee you never heard what a black hole sounds like. The video I'm about to show you shows you exactly what a black hole sounds like, and it's absolutely disturbing.
Part of me feels like space is another version of the ocean, if that makes sense on a bigger scale. You get what I'm trying to say? Like, it's like a different version of the ocean. Just think about it.
There's something really wrong with this deer. It might just be a skinwalker.
We've been big in a couple years. Something's wrong with you. I'm running in your car. Oh my God. What's
I mean, the poor thing might just be really sick. If you want to learn more about skinwalkers, check out my recent video. I talk about all things skinwalker and give you some creepy facts. Link in bio.
1 minute scary stories. Episode 3. Monster under the bed. My son had not quite been himself today. I couldn't put my finger on it, but he just didn't seem right. I shrugged it off, thinking he may just be feeling out of sorts. I begin tucking him into bed and he tells me, "Daddy, check for monsters under my bed." I look underneath for his amusement. And there I see him, another him, under the bed, staring back at me, quivering and whispering, "Daddy, there's something in my bed."
If I was a father, that would be such a mind freak, man. I would be in my head just like, yo, I wouldn't know what to do, man. Let me know in the comments what you would do.
It's raining worms in China right now. Okay, recently there's been a lot of weird things going on in China. Like them finding a new island covered in dinosaurs. And now apparently it's raining worms. It sounds like something straight out of a sci-fi movie, but there's actually a video proving it. Who would have thought we would ever see a day where it's raining worms? They even told all of their citizens to carry umbrellas so they don't get hit by the worms.
That doesn't even look real. How do you get raining worms? It's definitely like an airplane that like accidentally unloaded a bunch of worms or something. Has to be.
10 years after the disappearance of flight MH370, the search for the Malaysia Airlines plane could resume. Here's the latest on the investigation. But first, a recap. MH370 was a flight that departed from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia to Beijing on March 8, 2014. The Boeing 777 took off at 4:41 local time with 239 people on board. At 1:30 a.m., as the plane had just entered Vietnamese airspace, the plane suddenly disappeared, as seen here on flight radar. There were search efforts for MH370 for over 4 years, mainly by the Australian, Malaysian, and Chinese governments, then by the American company Ocean Infinity. On May 29, 2018, the Malaysian government officially announced the end of the search, as many relatives of the passengers continue to demand new search efforts 10 years after the disappearance. Malaysian Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim made this statement on Monday, March 4, 2024.
If there are compelling case, evidence that need to be reopened, we will certainly be happy to reopen, because whatever need to be done must be done.
Back in 2018, a 400-page official report presented by the Malaysian government established that the investigation team is unable to determine the true cause of the disappearance of MH370. Witnesses reported seeing a ball of fire in the sky on the night of the crash and traces of fuel in the water near the location of the disappearance, but no piece of the plane was officially found on site. A few days after the disappearance, Malaysian authorities stated that the Boeing 777's communications had been disabled, that the change of course was the result of a deliberate action, and that the plane had continued to fly for nearly 7 hours, effectively expanding the search perimeter well beyond the Malaysian and Vietnamese coasts. Several other leads were then explored: terrorist hijacking, suicidal action by the pilot. However, according to a 2017 DGSI report, there was nothing suspicious in the profiles of the 227 passengers and 12 crew members. Still, according to French investigators, it is likely that the pilot flew the plane to the end, but nothing supports the suicide theory. Relatives of passengers and some journalists also mention the possibility of the plane being destroyed by a missile, a theory that has never been confirmed. Debris from the plane has since been found very far from the initial search area, in Reunion, Madagascar, and Tanzania. These debris are considered to be probably or certainly from flight MH370.
That really makes you try to think, like, what really happened? Because all of a sudden, everything, they're saying no one looked really suspicious. Everything was going well. The pilots didn't really sound or look suicidal. So that the missile theory would make the most sense, because the debris of the parts of it were all over the place. But at the same time, I feel like you'd be able to track that in a way. Someone in the comments of that video was like, oh, it's kind of crazy how we could find planets light years away, but we can't find a plane that literally had its signal on or off or something like that. And I was like, it's low-key true. How can we know about these planets, but we don't even know about a plane that just randomly disappeared like this? Like, come on, bro. Maybe whoever is looking into it don't have the money for that, I guess. Anyways, if you guys liked the video, please like the video. Remember to check the chains down in the description. Love y'all.